Thank you for tuning in to the CLNS Media Patriots Roundtable discussion here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audio-visual content of the New England Patriots. I'm Bobby Krivitsky. There in the glasses, we have the one and only Mike Petraglia, a.k.a. Trags. Next to him, down there at the bottom right of your screen, you will see Mike Dussault. Many of you know him better as Pat's Propaganda. And listen up, we are going to dive into this Patriots win over the Miami Dolphins and break down everything you need to know from the game the other day. But first, listen up, Hoop fans. Basketball season is back, and now that your favorite hardwood heroes have returned to action, it's time for you to put your fantasy knowledge to the test to win huge cash prizes every night playing one-day fantasy basketball at DraftKings.com. At DraftKings, there are so many ways to play. Choose from public contests with huge cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against your friends. They've even got beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level. The best part, you get to draft a new team each day, and drafting a team is arguably the best part of fantasy. The only thing better, winning cash doing it. Just ask Dan from St. Louis or Jeremy from Austin. They both turned a $3 entry into $1,000. Huge cash prizes and bragging rights await only at DraftKings. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com to play free with your first deposit for your share of $10,000 in total prizes tonight. Don't wait. Use code CLNS at DraftKings.com now to choose your lineup, and you can seriously cash in tonight. That's code CLNS only at DraftKings.com. The game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Trags, you were covering the game yesterday. You spoke to Bill Belichick afterwards, and you asked him about the fact that Miami, the second most penalized team in the NFL, a lot of extracurricular activity going on, but the Patriots stayed disciplined and refused to engage the Dolphins.
I thought what was interesting, and the reason I asked that is Belichick always talks about every single week the Patriots are reminded to keep their cool on the field, not just if they're playing Ndamukong Suh and somebody who tries to draw you into some type of brawl, but whether you're playing the Houston Texans, whether you're playing the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars, it doesn't matter. But what was interesting to me is Belichick went back and, as he always does, tries to find something with historical perspective. And he didn't have to go back too far. He went back to last year's games with the Dolphins and showed the players the same kind of crap that went on yesterday from the two games in 2016, reminding his team, this is what they do. This is what they are going to do to you on Sunday. Just beware of it. And he told me that, yeah, that's a good point. And I thought we did a good job, or the Patriots players did a really good job of keeping their cool. And I thought that was really important, considering the fact that Bobby McCain threw a punch at Danny Amendola, and a couple plays later, the Patriots took their 28-10 lead. I thought that was a big moment in the game.
Drags, I thought it was reflective of the state of the two organizations. Miami goes out and they spend lavishly in free agency, and to this point, it hasn't worked out yet, whereas the Patriots focus on this disciplined approach of building the roster from top to bottom. And then you see the Dolphins, the second most penalized team in the league. As you said, they've got a player throwing a punch, getting ejected, while New England refuses to engage. I thought it was exemplary of the discipline of one franchise, the lack of discipline of another. Mike Dussault, another big takeaway from this game, unfortunately, was the injuries that piled up. I thought you had a tweet during the game, again, that's at Pat's Propaganda, that embodied how many Patriots fans felt watching the action from the other day, saying, quote, Ebner, Flowers, Riley, Waddle is the only scoreboard I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, the Kyle Van Noy and the Trey Flowers were the two big ones. I mean, obviously, with Nate Ebner going down, that one is a tough one. You know, I think a lot of people obviously minimize the importance of special teams, but he's such a key player, and I mean, it's sad to see him go out on. The Patriots go out. Seems like they're going to go 3-and-out on that first possession, and it seemed like he might have called that. He saw something within the lineup of the punt return team And then to have him go out on that play was a little bit disappointing. But it's unfortunately, this is what the Patriots have basically become. It just comes down to, well, what are the injury situations? Because you feel pretty good. They're probably going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be one of the top 2 seeds. It's just a question of, are they going to be at full strength? And I think the two that stick with me are Trey Flowers, Kyle Van Noy. I think some of the reports early on were that they were not serious as Ebners, but those two guys, given what they've lost on defense in the front seven, those two guys are so key. So I think those are really two that they need to have back and not have out for a long time, because at some point there's going to be a breaking point with all these injuries.
And if I can jump in, Kyle Van Noy never ceases to amaze me. I think he's one of the most underrated players in recent memory for the Patriots. His story's been well documented, but the play he made, the tackle he made at about the 6-yard line on Jarvis Landry kind of shows to me his discipline as a defensive player, how much he's grown, and why the Patriots like him so much. In that situation, the Dolphins got the matchup they exactly wanted, and Kyle Van Noy held his ground and made what I thought in space was a terrific tackle.
Yeah, he's really emerged. Now they use him more in that Dante Hightower strong side linebacker role off the edge, and he's had a lot more success there than he did at the beginning of the season when he was playing off the ball in the middle and that middle linebacker spot. Trags, I want to come back to you now as the Patriots, for the 3rd week in a row since coming off the bye, continue to build on their success in the red zone, getting it done against Miami 5 for 5 in a variety of ways.
Well, what's interesting about that is yesterday they did it without the benefit of Martellus Bennett, which is an obvious reason why they went out and got somebody like Bennett. But I think the big reason they were effective yesterday in the red zone, they had the threat of the running game. And Dion Lewis was very dynamic, I thought, on Sunday. A career high 112 yards. I can't believe that's his first 100-yard rushing game of his career, but that is the fact. But the threat of a running game, I thought, and the way they were able to pound the ball and explode that offensive line forward, to me, was a big difference in the red zone on Sunday, and the reason they went 5 for 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike Dussault, let's talk about Dion Lewis right now. Career day, goes over 100 yards rushing for the first time. However, with all that said, we see him on kickoffs. We see him get 15 carries. He didn't factor much into the passing attack yesterday, but he normally does. Do you think it would be wise for New England to reduce his workload down the home stretch of the regular season?
God, I tweeted a couple games ago, and I continue to think it every single time he touches the ball. I just say a prayer for his ACL. I would just love for them to get to the playoffs with this Dion Lewis. I mean, obviously they had him last year, but he was not this exciting, dynamic player, that we saw early in 2015, and it looks like he's finally got that back. And we're just seeing such a balanced Patriots offense. It's pretty, remarkable how they've kind of gone away from, Julian Edelman obviously going down, and now they're so effective with running the ball, with the explosiveness of Cooks. I mean, how much the offense has kind of evolved this year. It's pretty fascinating to see. And, yesterday I felt like with a prime Rob Gronkowski game as well, coming off of a back injury and, however many back surgeries he's had, a little bit of a slow start. But I think yesterday, again, as Trag said, going 5 for 5 in the red zone, that was kind of like, oh, what do we complain about? Let's complain about the red zone. And here they are, Gronk has a big game. And they look fine in the red zone. So if they can keep those 3 guys upright, that Lewis, Cooks, and Gronk, they're going to be a tough out for anybody, and they're going to move the ball and score points.
Tom Brady's new favorite play, by the way, is the drop pass to Brandon Cooks. That's the second time they've done that, and it's the shortest pass he'll ever throw in his career. And I said that whatever it was, week 7 or 8, when they used that same play to Brandon Cooks, but he gets a pass out of it, and what I like about that is, if Cooks fumbles that ball, it's an incompletion.
I think too. I think it's interesting, for when they brought Cooks in, there's a lot of talk of, oh, they've got a deep threat, a down the field guy, and what we've really seen is Cooks is at his most effective just getting him the ball in space. I mean, if he has just a little bit of steam, he's gone.
Yeah, he is really tough to contend with for defenses, especially when they have all these weapons that sometimes allow Cooks to get into one-on-one coverage. We saw Oakland couldn't cover him with 2 guys in Mexico City. So anytime the Patriots can create a downfield opportunity for Cooks against one defender, it's an opportunity Brady's going to try and take every single time. Meanwhile, Trags, on the defensive side of the ball, a season-high 7 sacks for the Patriots the other day. Is that a positive development or just a fluke?
No, it's positive development. What's good about that is you've seen the Patriots get pressure on the quarterback, whether it's Landon Roberts, Marquise Flowers, guys that you're not expecting a lot of, really come off the edge and really are getting to the quarterback. That's the reason I thought they were able to get those 2 big interceptions yesterday. I thought that the pick that Stephon Gilmore had in the end zone at the end of the first half, that was a game changer. But back to your point about the pressure, if the Patriots can get that kind of pressure on the quarterback, I think it's going to stand them in good stead when they go up against Pittsburgh. The Patriots are going to have to, and let's face it, everything points to that game in Pittsburgh in 3 weeks. They're going to have to pressure Ben Roethlisberger. They're going to have to get to him. And if they, show the kind of effort and get to the quarterback the way they did on Sunday, I like their chances to beat the Steelers.
Not just pressure Ben Roethlisberger, Trags, but also he is at his best outside the pocket, extending plays, giving Antonio Brown more time to create separation from the defense. So not saying Ben can't be effective inside the pocket, but right. I think that's where the Patriots are best to keep him bottled up.
Well, and one other thing I want to mention, the play of Lee yesterday, the linebacker, the defensive end that the Patriots added when they let go of Cassius Marsh. I think that's an interesting personnel move, and the fact that they didn't have a lot of defensive end depth coming into this part of the season, and they let Cassius Marsh go, and he's back in the NFC West with San Francisco. Really, I think opens the Patriots up to certainly some criticism there. But to see the pressure that the Patriots got on the quarterback on Sunday probably is an indication to Belichick. We're not so worried about the particular player as we are players that play the system, and that's always obviously been the case.
And Mike, you talked about it during the game on Twitter. Again, folks, that's at Pat's Propaganda. The development of the linebackers this season, from Landon Roberts to Marquise Flowers, whether it be rushing the passer or in coverage, where I think he's been even better for New England, they're starting to get more out of that unheralded group of players. And I think that group had more to do with the Patriots generating pressure and getting those 7 sacks than even the guys up front did.
Yeah, I think the pressure hasn't always I think the pressure's been good. I think really what they were kind of missing towards the earlier parts of the season was just the finish. A lot of times they had the quarterback in their sights and they just didn't quite finish it. And I think that's what we kind of saw yesterday. And as you mentioned, Landon Roberts, Trags had said about Kyle Van Noy, those 2 guys have really developed this year. Last year and into early parts of this year, we saw so many plays where Landon Roberts, if it's a pass, he just gets sucked in by play action. And I think he's really made some strides, which is what you would hope would happen with Hightower and Shane McClellan and all these guys that they've lost. Getting that additional playing time is really starting to serve that level. But I still think that the designated pass rusher role, the 4th guy, is a little bit fluid. You saw Eric Lee in it a little bit yesterday. Who's that 4th guy going to be when you get to the playoffs to complement Trey Flowers, Adam Butler, and Deatrich Wise? Those 3 guys have kind of been the mainstays lately. And, we've seen Butler really, I thought yesterday he had some good plays as well. So it's just really the finish. And I think if you can continue to kind of use Van Noy in that role that they used Hightower, where sometimes they're blitzing him, sometimes they're dropping him, he's been really effective there as well.
Meanwhile, Trags, on the back end of the defense, you talked about Stephon Gilmore, perhaps the play of the day. In your mind, definitively, it was the play of the day, that interception to end the first half and take points off the board for Miami. In his last 3 games since returning from a concussion, Trags, 57.1 completion percentage allowed, just 1 touchdown surrendered, 1 interception. It should have been 2 because Daron Harmon took it away from him. And he's only yielded a 67.2 passer rating. Trags, that comes against Demaryius Thomas, Michael Crabtree, and Devontae Parker. So he's been fortunate to be able to play a lot of man-to-man coverage, but he has lived up to his contract these last 3 weeks.
Well, and that's what they're going to have to need to see from him throughout the final part of the season here and going into the playoffs. They need Gilmore to play at that level. What they really need, I think, and what is obvious right now, is Gilmore's playing in a comfort level I think very similar to the way you saw Darrelle Revis a couple of years in his 1 year with the Patriots. It took him, what, half a season to really get comfortable. Then Bill finally said, screw it, we're just going to put him in man-to-man and let him be comfortable and let him play to his strengths and not worry as much about the system. And you've seen Bill Belichick do this before. If he sees a talented player who looks uncomfortable and out of place, he'll make that adjustment if he thinks it's worthwhile. He's always brought up the Elvis Patterson point with the New York Giants. And he's, I think, always been willing to make the adjustment to the player if he thinks long-term that player is going to benefit the team playing more to his own individual style as opposed to worrying about cover 2, cover 3, soft zones, whatever. I think that's what you're seeing from Stephon Gilmore. Gilmore's finding a comfort zone.
Mike, there will come a time, perhaps against Pittsburgh, where an offense tests Stephon Gilmore's ability to read situations on the fly more. Do you trust his progression as a complete cornerback who can handle those types of things, whether it's switches, whether it's handling rub routes, etc.? Do you trust his progression in that regard?
I do. I mean, I think, it's like we see, and as Trags brought up with Revis, and I mean, just generally as a defense every year, that this is what you see, and for whatever reason, because, I mean, everybody kind of knew that this is what Stephon Gilmore did well when he came here. I mean, that was, there was no question. And for some reason, the Patriots, when they start the season, they're always like, well, we're going to try throwing him in a lot of zone and see how he does. It seems like, well, why don't you just put him in man coverage for the start? Everybody knows that's what he does well. But, I think a lot of the issues early in the season with him, whether they were specifically him or kind of a group fail per se, a lot of times I felt like the safeties were kind of the ones messing up. I think just overall as a defense, the communication is better, and that's what makes me feel better about Gilmore. I think my only concerns about Gilmore were just that, he's not quite the physical tackler that Logan Ryan was, and I think that's kind of an important part of the defense. And he's never really been that guy. He's also, unfortunately missed a couple guys, but, Logan Ryan was pretty reliable. So it'll be interesting to see, when they play some of the more physical teams, how he does in that regard. But overall, I think the secondary is playing really well. And I think, Jonathan Jones has really come on in the slot. He was in multiple coverages yesterday. We had a 4th down tackle for a stop as well. And I just love Malcolm Butler. I'm going to be the biggest Malcolm Butler apologist, but he's just been real up and down this year. I feel like he makes one great play and one terrible play. So it's all developing. And between Chunk really coming on and McCourty, they kind of got those back end problems figured out now. I think they're going to be okay. Really, for me, it's just about the front 7 staying healthy, finishing the quarterback when you get to him.
Yeah, it felt like virtually every linebacker on the roster went down at one point during yesterday's game. Mike, I want to end starting with you on your very own Twitter poll from the other day. Again, that's at Pat's Propaganda. If the Patriots could only re-sign one of Dion Lewis or Malcolm Butler, who are you going with? And Trags, I'm coming to you next.
It's a Sophie's choice. I know. That's why I had to put it. I don't often do Twitter polls, but I was like, I got to put this one to the fans because I'm just, I love them both so much. I feel like Lewis is special. And as much as I love Butler, his inconsistencies and the way that they've valued cornerbacks over the years, I mean, it's just such a total shock to see them hand Stephon Gilmore that contract. And now they're I don't want to say they're stuck with it because he's a good player and, they're fortunate to have him. But at the same time, I think, you've got Jonathan Jones, who I'm not sure is ever going to be an outside guy. He's more of a slot guy. And I like what Adamosi did when he was in there. So I'm going to stay. Let's keep Dion Lewis, and I'll just continue to get heart palpitations for his ACLs every time he carries the ball.
Well, I'm going to go with Dion Lewis for this reason. Assuming that he stays healthy, he gives you that dynamic back that is a rarity in the NFL that can really make things happen with the ball in his hands and can run between the tackles. I think the thing people forget about Dion Lewis and what you saw yesterday, he is not afraid to run in the box and run between the tackles. And when he does that effectively, he can slither out. He can take a pounding, really took a couple of huge hits and bounced right back up yesterday. And you need a guy like that, a running back like that, to truly keep the pressure off Tom Brady and keep defenses honest when they're coming all out to get to Tom Brady. So I would say for that reason, as long as Tom Brady is on the roster, I want Dion Lewis in that backfield.
Trags, you nailed it. Lewis is much stronger than his 5'8", 195-pound frame would suggest, and he'll be the first to tell you. But guys, when you're the host, you know what you get to do when you ask the question? You get to cheat. You get to manipulate it. So I don't see why this is an either or. I'm saying pay them both. Dion Lewis doesn't command that much coin. Do I expect them to re-sign Malcolm Butler? Absolutely not. But with all the needs that they're going to have to fill and mostly be looking to fill through the draft, I say pay them both.
I don't think that's realistic, but
it's not.
Pay anybody. Yeah, I think the left tackle, that's kind of a thing. That's a big money spender area that they're going to have to deal with as well. So I don't like to turn the page to the offseason too quickly. I feel like Malcolm Butler is a tone setter for that secondary. But as Trag said, Lewis, he just changes the dynamic when you're preparing for the Patriots offense. Now, it's Dion Lewis has got to be part of your preparation.
And there's no doubt that he is. He was a big part of our preparation for today's show. Thank you for tuning in to the latest Patriots Roundtable discussion here on CLNS Media, the leading online provider of audiovisual content of the New England Patriots. For Mike Petraglia and Mike Dussault, I'm Bobby Krivitsky. We will be releasing another Patriots Roundtable previewing Sunday's game in Buffalo. That will be coming out, like I said, Friday morning. You can find it on YouTube at CLNS Media. You can find it on Twitter at CLNS Media, as well as at CLNS Patriots on Twitter, not to mention all of our personal Twitter accounts. Once again, for Mike Petraglia and Mike Dussault, I'm Bobby Krivitsky. Thanks for watching and have a great week.